Star Wars Jedi Survivor is making some serious changes to the way that combat works in the game, and we think it's worth understanding ahead of launch. My name is Codiak, this is Legacy Gaming, and today we're talking about lightsaber stances in Star Wars Jedi Survivor. If you watched our most recent Jedi Survivor video, then you might have picked up on the fact that lightsaber stances play a crucial role in how Cal performs in combat. Unlike in the first game, Survivor gives players a lot more control over Cal and allows them to tailor their playstyle based on their personal fighting style. The game will feature 5 stances in total: single blade, double blade, dual wield, crossguard, and blaster. As you might expect, each style brings something different to the table in terms of strengths and weaknesses, and that's really what I want to focus on in this video, a basic understanding of what stance might fit your particular playstyle and when it might be most effective in combat. Thanks to some preview footage from Game Informer, we actually can see how the development team distributes those strengths amongst 4 key categories. It's unclear if these charts align with any sort of increase or decrease of stats when using a specific stance. That'll just be something we have to test when the game goes live. So let's start with the single blade stance. As you might have guessed, this is a classic, balanced choice that Cal will have access to at the start of the game. Again, thanks to that Game Informer footage, we can see that single blade distributes stats right down the middle. Overall, I don't think there's a lot of mystery here. Single blade is the basic stance of most Jedi throughout the galaxy, and as one of the default starter options for Cal, there's nothing overly unique about it. Single target, multi-target, boss battle, it'll pretty much get the job done in any situation. When it comes to the double blade, the use case might surprise you. According to the game's stance screen, we can see the developers have designed double blade to be a highly mobile, energetic approach to combat, best for dealing with many enemies at once. In terms of a stat distribution, we see decreased power and range, but increased speed and defense. Strangely enough, this is the stance we've seen the most footage of well ahead of launch. A lot of the class maneuvers fans have come to associate with this type of saber have been shown off, including the saber throw and the spinning saber deflection. Where I think this stance is really going to shine is when players have to deal with hordes of low-threat enemies. If you're surrounded by a few Praetorian guards, might not be the right choice, but if you're dealing with 10 or so battle droids, yeah, I think double blade is going to work out well. Overall, it's still a relatively balanced stance, so I think it'll be applicable in nearly every situation. Moving right along, let's talk about the stance I'm most excited to get my hands on: dual wield. With this option, Cal takes a single lightsaber in each hand, and as you can see by the power distribution, the stance is the first we've talked about that dramatically changes Cal's proficiencies in combat. There's a clear emphasis on power and speed here, so if you're someone that typically likes a glass cannon approach, this might be the option for you. By the nature of those distributed stats, that means that range and defense are far below average. What this means in terms of gameplay is that while in dual wield, players will need to be incredibly close to enemies and won't have much in the way of defensive capabilities. Whether that means your ability to block incoming attacks is more limited is still unclear, but assume this stance is all offense with very little room for error. At some point in the game, Cal will unlock the 4th stance, Crossguard, and simply put, I think players across the board are excited to finally have the equivalent of a heavy weapon lightsaber at their disposal. While we haven't seen the power distribution screen for this saber, I think it's safe to take a stab at what we might see once we get our hands on this stance. Power sky high, that's my guess. It's a heavy weapon, and that means big, beefy damage. Speed? Rock bottom. Again, if you played any sort of RPG with heavy weapons, you know speed is always the counterweight to damage. Range, I think this one is slightly below average. While the saber does have good reach, it's been confirmed that attacks in this stance don't actually move you towards your targets like other stances. Instead, you attack and stay in the exact same spot, which does strike me as limiting from a range perspective. Finally, defense, which I think will be above average. If there's a saber stance in the game designed to withstand the blows and blaster fire of enemies, it's Crossguard. Overall, I'm really interested to see how Crossguard fits into the combat landscape of the game. Part of Cal's identity in Fallen Order was how quick and nimble he can be in combat, and the Crossguard stance really flips that dynamic on its head. Hopefully, it's generous with how many incoming attacks we can absorb, because it'll be strange if we're in this super heavy build, but constantly forced to sidestep attacks at rapid pace. It's something we've seen in other games, and it doesn't make for a great experience. Nonetheless, I think this is going to be a banger of a stance that'll make for some explosive moments in combat. The final choice players will have access to in Jedi Survivor is the Blaster Stance, and straight up, this is the one I think will be most fun to play because it's so incredibly different than anything else we've talked about up until this point. While we haven't seen any screens or gameplay of the blaster combat, we do know quite a bit about how it'll function thanks to a recent behind closed doors preview event. As expected, the Blaster Stance focuses on using the blaster as either a medium range or close range weapon. That being said, you'll still wield one lightsaber in the other hand. Now, it's being said that this stance has a sort of push-pull cadence, and that's because players will have to manage their ammunition. To recharge your blaster, players will need to attack with their melee weapon, and by all reports, the lightsaber combat in this stance is pretty vanilla, and it clearly sounds like the melee combat is a means to an end, that being recharging your blaster. What's cool is that there are multiple reports of blaster animations from melee range as well, so for the first time, we'll be able to pistol whip enemies in a Star Wars game. Kinda neat. It's also been revealed that Blaster Stance will feature a standard shot, a charged shot, as well as a sort of slow time ability where Cal can paint multiple targets and then unleash a rapid-fire auto-aimed attack. If we take this back to our power distribution chart, I think it's safe to assume that power is somewhere in the average to above average category. Speed is most likely below average, range is most likely maxed out, and defense, I would imagine, is also below average. There's no doubt in my mind that this will be the most unique combat stance in the game, but just how practical it is, well, that remains to be seen. One thing I think it's important to call out is that while all 5 of these stances will be available once fully unlocked, during combat, players will only be able to hot swap between 2 predetermined stances. That means you just can't cycle between all 5, but instead have to flip between a primary and secondary stance that you set in the menus. I don't necessarily mind this system, but I do think it will be slightly limiting in the early phases of the game as players are exploring which stances they like best. Sadly, I think because of the limiting nature of the system, most people will lock into a rhythm with 1 or 2 stances and never make the effort to fully explore all 5 in total. But hopefully, I'm wrong. Either way, I think it's important information for you all to have. Quickly, I also want to touch on lightsaber customization. I know it's something a lot of people care about, and while we haven't seen a full look at the system, we do know it's shaping up to be very similar to the system from Fallen Order. Players will be able to augment their blade, components, or materials indicated by the menu up top. In terms of lightsaber components, it looks like the emitter, switch, grip, and pommel will all be interchangeable. In terms of colors, well, we can clearly see that blue, green, purple, yellow, cyan, magenta, indigo, orange, and white are all available at this point in the game. It's not clear if these colors are all that are available, but it's safe to assume it's a healthy look at what players can expect. So there you have it, a look at the 5 combat stances available in Star Wars Jedi Survivor ahead of launch. I have to know which stance is currently your favorite and which are you most excited to check out. Let us know in the comment section below. Of course, if you enjoy videos like this and you want more Star Wars Jedi Survivor in your feeds, do me a solid, hit that thumbs up and consider subscribing. We'll have more content leading into and after launch, so keep it right here and never miss a new video. My name is Codiak, and from everyone here at Legacy Gaming, thanks for watching and play on.